Counterintelligence missions in Somalia. Somalia has long been a vortex of chaos, where warlords, extremist militias, pirates, and foreign operatives operate in overlapping circles of violence and influence. In this fractured nation, where formal governance is minimal and intelligence is both currency and weapon, the U.S. quietly invested in a web of surveillance and counterterrorism efforts. At the center of some of these covert missions, according to sources and investigative reports, was Blackwater. Officially, American presence in Somalia was limited to drone strikes, special operations raids, and intelligence sharing with African Union forces. But behind the curtain, private contractors were brought in to do what governments could not openly admit: gather intelligence on insurgent networks, monitor jihadist financing, and disrupt terror plots before they reached Western shores. Blackwater, leveraging its experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, deployed small teams into strategic zones within Mogadishu and along the southern coast, areas under the influence of al-Shabaab, the al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group that ruled with fear and brutality. These contractors operated with civilian covers: aid workers, logistics personnel, or regional security consultants, blending into NGO compounds and diplomatic enclaves while quietly collecting data. Their objectives were surgical: identify safe houses, intercept arms shipments, monitor local communications, and map out the human networks that supported terrorist activity. Blackwater operatives worked closely with Somali informants, often under dangerous circumstances, offering money or protection in exchange for tips on militant movement or pending attacks. Every whisper could mean the difference between an intercepted plot and another bombing in Nairobi or Djibouti. In some instances, Blackwater was believed to have set up surveillance equipment near key transit routes, used by arms smugglers or foreign fighters entering from Yemen. Using drones, hidden cameras, and human intelligence, they created a picture of al-Shabaab's logistics and leadership structure. Information that was then fed back to U.S. and allied intelligence cells in the region. One of the more sensitive roles involved deconfliction, tracking and identifying potential threats not just from jihadist groups, but from foreign intelligence agencies operating under their own agendas. Somalia had become a playground for regional powers. Turkey, UAE, Iran, and Qatar all had footprints on the ground, some supporting proxies or exploiting the country's lack of central authority. Blackwater contractors were tasked with identifying and neutralizing covert influence operations that could jeopardize Western interests. The risk was enormous. Operating in Somalia meant no backup, limited diplomatic protection, and exposure to ruthless enemies who would not hesitate to kidnap, torture, or kill. Yet Blackwater's teams moved with quiet efficiency, relying on hardened fieldcraft, local networks, and rapid extraction plans to survive and succeed. Their presence was rarely acknowledged, but their impact was clear. Several planned attacks were reportedly foiled through actionable intelligence traced back to private surveillance. Weapon caches were intercepted, high-value targets were located, and slowly, al-Shabaab's grip on certain urban zones began to crack under the pressure of invisible watchers. Still, ethical questions lingered. Should a private company be allowed to run counterintelligence missions in sovereign nations? What legal protections or consequences existed for those who operated in the dark, under no military command or international jurisdiction? The answers remained buried, much like the missions themselves. Blackwater's operations in Somalia weren't about firefights or airstrikes. They were about control, of information, of influence, of outcomes. In the lawless ruins of a failed state, they were the unseen force collecting the puzzle pieces that would decide the future of U.S. power in East Africa. There were no medals, no flags, just results. And in the world of counterintelligence, that's the only language that matters.